I'd like to welcome you to the CEO Breakfast and Strategy Series 2017-2018. I'm Brian Brees, the president of St. Norbert College, and it's my great privilege to have you here to welcome you on this increasingly colder, blustery winter day. I was walking in and was told that it's going to get colder and windier today, so it's good to have you here and to have the warm spirit of this group. For 20 years, the CEO Breakfast Series has been providing executives with the opportunity to hear some of the area's best CEOs. This program is being brought to you through the generosity of our presenting sponsor, WPS Health Solutions, our title sponsors, Myron Construction, Insight Publication, Johnson Bank, and Johnson Insurance, and the sponsor of this session is Verhalen Commercial Interiors. At your table, you have some folders with information about our sponsors, and I'd like to encourage you to take that with you, and as you're bumping into our sponsors, thank them for their generosity, and could we all together show our appreciation for their sponsorship. At this time, I'd like to invite Father Mike Brennan, College Chaplain and Director of the Norbert Team Vocations, to offer grace. After grace, breakfast will be served. Thank you.
So we begin in the way we begin so many good things. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. I'm borrowing from one of our own, Dr. Ken Zahorsky, in his book of poetry. It's called In Praise of Winter. When winter paints its dainty flowers on windows' frigid canvas, and bushes sleep snug under fluffy comforters of snow, my contented spirit rubs its hands and grows warm before tranquility's hearth, celebrating in her mind-furred realm that wisely counsels mind and body to move more slowly, to think more deeply, of where I've been, where I'm going, and why that destination. So as we pause this morning to consider where we've been, where we're going, and as we pause over this feast, we thank God for it. We ask God to bless all of us, to bless us on this cold winter day, to bless those that aren't so fortunate to ponder the coldness, but have to struggle amongst it. Bless this food, bless those that prepared it, and bless those that are not so fortunate as we are. We ask all of this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
It is now my great pleasure to introduce Mike Hamerlik. Mike joined WPS in 2012 as president and CEO. During his tenure, he has emphasized strategic thinking, which has resulted in new health insurance products, enhanced traditional health insurance products, transparent communication with employees and the community, and a solution-focused problem solving. Prior to joining WPS, Mike was president and CEO of Noridian Administrative Services. Before that, he served as Executive Vice President of Government and Corporate Operations at Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Dakota. He previously practiced law in Phoenix, Arizona, and also served as a member of the North Dakota House of Representatives for 6 years. Mike graduated magna cum laude from the University of North Dakota with a Bachelor of Business Administration degree and then earned his law degree from the University of North Dakota School of Law. There's a theme here, North Dakota. His father is also a retired professor at the University of North Dakota, so lots of connections to North Dakota. Mike serves on the boards of the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce, United Way of Dane County, Madison Symphony Orchestra, the UW-Madison La Follette School Board of Visitors, and the University of North Dakota Alumni Association Foundation, as well as the boards of WPS and subsidiaries and affiliates. He's a member and past president of the Wisconsin Alliance of Health Insurers. Please welcome a very busy and successful CEO in the area, Mike Hamerlik.
Thank you. Thanks for the kind introduction. It's always weird to kind of hear those things read back to you, right? Because here's what we're going to use, and it's like, it just makes you kind of squeamish to hear them. But thanks for those kind words. I mean, at the outset, I want to start out by saying that what I'm going to say today, because the chairman of our board, Dr. Tim Flaherty, is sitting in the audience, these are my remarks, these are my thoughts. They are not necessarily the same as the board of directors, the company, our customers, our chairman, or anybody else. But my goal today is really to talk about healthcare and to get people thinking about the challenges that we face, and they're huge. I know that I'm going to be wrong in at least half of them, but we have to get moving on it. I'll try to challenge a few things, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but create some intellectual combat. And so if I'm successful at the end of the day, everybody will be equally offended. Now, today's topic is healthcare and the mess we're in. There are three elements I think that we have to think about, or characteristics, when we think about the healthcare system. There's number one, having access to it, having the card, having some way to get access. Number two, how, when, and where we get that access. And the third is how those services are paid for. Now, let me tell you a little bit about WPS so you understand where we're coming from. WPS is a not-for-profit, Wisconsin-based healthcare company. We're based in Madison, Wisconsin, and we were started in 1946 by the Wisconsin Medical Society. We, up here in this area, we are known probably more or as much through our subsidiary, Arise Health Plan. The legal name of Arise is WPS Health Plan, Inc., but there's another WPS around here that people confuse us with. So I call that's kind of WPS in drag is Arise Health Plan. But it's all us. We write health insurance for groups and individuals with a focus on small and medium-sized groups that are located in Wisconsin. We also have a lot of Medicare supplement business for seniors. And I am proud to say, this is the sales part, we have the best Medicare supplement plan on the market. It really is. It really is the best product for us. We're also the health insurance partner of the Green Bay Packers. So, many people don't know that over 75% of our business, however, is business that we do with the federal government. We process claims for Medicare, for the Veterans Administration in the Patient-Centered Community Care and the Veterans Choice Act and the Department of Defense through TRICARE, through the TRICARE dual eligible contract. I won't get into the names of it, but that's most of our business. We process claims in all 50 states, in 193 countries around the world for the Department of Defense through an overseas contract. We have about 3,600 employees, and we are based in Madison, as I said, but we have main offices here in De Pere. We also have offices in Wausau, a large office in Wausau, but also Omaha, Nebraska, Marion, Illinois, and we just opened our largest office with about 900 people in Hampton, Virginia. In 2018, we expect that we will process about 300 million claims on behalf of 22 million beneficiaries and pay over $100 billion in claims. Now, as you just learned, I've been in Wisconsin for about 6 years now, and I don't know all of what most of you know about how the healthcare system here works. I came from North Dakota, which is also a very unique state. In North Dakota, the water is clean, the rivers flow north, and the Irish vote Republican. So it's very different from most other states. But as the CEO of an insurance company, when we come to talk about healthcare costs, I tell people I always kind of feel like a fire hydrant at a dog convention. Because most of us, we pay for our health care to our health insurance company. We don't pay the providers. And so we become the villains. I used to tell people, back in the day, health insurance CEOs were the only people that used to get hate mail from Mother Teresa. I mean, that is how disliked we were. It's because we're the villains, we're the people that accept the money. But the real problem is the cost of the underlying health care. The white coats remain white, but we are the ones who kind of take the brunt. Now, I'm not trying to form some kind of a support group about that. That's just the reality. We're okay with it. But I want to tell you that it does kind of compel us to make sure that we're a part of the solution to it. And that's why we all have to work together. We also recognize as insurers, we've had a role in this mess. We're not trying to kind of say, oh, this, it's not us. We do. But the underlying problem is the cost. I try to be practical and realistic about looking at solutions, so we don't want to spend a lot of time really assessing how we got here or trying to make sense of the system, because our healthcare system is utterly nonsensical. But some hindsight is helpful to understand where we got. Now, I got to tell you, as a Lutheran in the midst of a Roman Catholic college, I'm comfortable with the following. It's Martin Luther's fault. We have recently celebrated, or for some, maybe just merely observed, the 500th anniversary of the 95 Theses in the chapel in Wittenberg, right? The 500th anniversary of the Reformation. Remember, it was called Reformation. It was not intended to be a revolution. But it's a Reformation. What does it have to do with healthcare? Seriously, for many years, healthcare was firmly in the hands of the nuns and other sacred orders, and for hundreds of years following. And after that, it was only after the Reformation when the other people got involved. We had the Lutherans get involved, then we had the counties get involved, the governments get involved, and eventually even the profiteers. So I think, at least in this group, we can just say it's Martin Luther who started this. The nuns showed us that actually margin and mission can coexist. And we have to get back to some of those fundamental views on how healthcare should be delivered. Now, competition doesn't work in healthcare. That's the problem with what I was just trying to describe. It does not work the way that competition works in almost any other industry, at least not to reduce prices. So when I talk about a healthcare system, I use the word system very loosely. Because one of the problems with healthcare is that it's not a system at all. When you think of I looked up the definition of system, and it's to describe a set of parts that combine to form a whole, and those parts are organized in a rational way to be unified. Now, does that describe our healthcare? Very, very little. There's an exception to everything that I'm saying, right? But most places, it's not a system at all. It may be a monetary system, but it's not a system where you're getting the same result. So here's some challenging characteristics. And the first one we've all heard a million times. The United States spends more than any other country in the world on health care, and in many cases by multiples, not percentages. Those numbers vary. They varied over the years, but they're undisputed. Healthcare services are not purchased or delivered in a marketplace where basic rules of capitalism, of supply and demand, or of economics apply. Because traditional market theories don't apply to healthcare delivery, typical market-based solutions won't work, or they won't work the way that we expect them to. Another, most people are insulated from both the knowledge and the consequences of the cost of healthcare, because when healthcare costs are incurred, almost always somebody else pays for it. An insurance company, a government program, or somebody else. We, as consumers of healthcare, we think of our copayment or our deductible as the cost of healthcare or the cost of going to the doctor. It's not. It's the total cost that's paid by everybody. Healthcare decisions are often emotional, not rational. And it's one thing to sit here in this room today and have this conversation about healthcare costs in the sanctity and the safety of this. It's something else when you're sitting next to somebody you love and they're going through challenges and you have to make those decisions. And I'll tell you, I'm doing that with my dad right now. We were just talking at breakfast. He's 88 years old. My family's basically been healthy. 88 years old. we know what the result is going to be, but we don't know the timing. And just the decisions, what's more important? He's not going to get better. So how do we make somebody comfortable? But all of those emotional things tie into our healthcare decisions. How do we support those? We don't talk enough about death and dying and how to get there. So there are all kinds of components that go into the solutions that we have. The one that I hear all the time is, well, yeah, 80% of healthcare costs are spent in the last year of life. That one, I always need more information because, yeah, kind of course they are, and that does kind of make intuitive sense. What we have to do is to dig into that and say, what of those costs really were intended to be paid? And should have been paid. What was wasteful? And finally, except in a few rare cases, the demand for healthcare services is insatiable, whatever it takes. Only in the most extreme cases at the end of life, when most other things have been tried, do we accept what we know is going to be the ultimate conclusion for all of us. It's also obvious that healthcare has also become very political. And it's been said that Congress is great at two things: doing nothing and overreacting. And that's a best case scenario when they're even talking to each other. And that's rare too. Even worse, they're politically polarized and operating at opposite ends of the political spectrum. We see that so much today. But the problem is most Americans and most solutions are somewhere in the middle. Now, you might have heard in the introduction that at one point I was in the legislature back in North Dakota. I was actually fairly young. I was 21 when I was elected and served for 6 years. It was a great gig when I was in college. The professors didn't mess with me very much when we had the appropriations committee. But using contemporary language, though, I can't say anymore that I'm a Republican. The contemporary language, I identify as a Republican. Both major parties are in philosophical disarray. I'm skeptical of any solutions, aren't we all, of anything that might come out. So I don't think Washington is going to come with a solution. So what can we do? When the Affordable Care Act was passed, the purpose was to gain access to health care through guaranteed issuance of health insurance. There were only a few feeble attempts in the Affordable Care Act to actually address the cost of health care. And that is why most people didn't have health insurance, is because they couldn't afford it. And under the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, they developed an essential benefit package, which was, again, kind of politically put together. It was a very rich benefit package that eliminated caps and limits on certain services. And I'm not saying that those were all wrong as a policy matter, but they had an impact on cost. And then the ACA made this available to everybody through the guaranteed issuance of policy. When I say guaranteed issuance, it's really the same thing as no pre-existing conditions or no medical underwriting. Anybody can get it, you just sign up for it. Now, as a policy matter, who can argue with any of that? Most of us have health insurance, probably all of us. And as an ethical matter, shouldn't everybody be entitled to the same? Some argue, and they may be correct, that the problem with the Affordable Care Act is that it simply didn't go far enough. And I'm going to give you an example of that. It's a problem the recent tax overhaul bill made worse. Guaranteed issue, or no pre-existing conditions, is a two-sided coin with the individual mandate. If we're going to cover everyone, we have to cover everyone. And what happened with the ACA is that the penalty for not having and not enrolling in insurance was so weak that it was not effective to balance the number of healthy versus unhealthy people in that insurance pool. This is not a policy issue. This is a math issue. More people who needed care signed up than those who didn't need care. As insurers, we don't print money, right? We take it in and we pay it out. And when we had loss ratios 117, 120%, for every dollar we were bringing in, we were paying out $1.20. It's just math. The math doesn't work. So there was a clear economic advantage to those who were sick, and they signed up. And there was only a tiny economic disadvantage to those who did not sign up. And then as the healthcare costs increase, the premiums go up, often substantially. And when the premiums continue to go up, those who are healthy continue to make an economic decision as to whether or not health insurance is a viable economic choice of theirs. And that's what is called an actuarial death spiral. You might have heard that term in the media. When most of the risks remaining in an insurance pool are heavy users of health insurance or health resources, and the skyrocketing healthcare costs further push the healthier risks out of the pool. Insurance might have been worth $500 when we started, but when the cost is $1,500 or $2,000, it's not an economic choice anymore, or it may not even, it just may not be there. So that's why you see some of these actuarial death spirals. So what's the solution? In my opinion, it's an ironclad mandate, not the repeal of the mandate that was just passed by Congress and signed by the President. A mandate is necessary where there's really no way to avoid it. And maybe this isn't the best example, but I think of it, well, how do we make it like a postage stamp, right? Everybody can use it, but you gotta pay 49 cents for that stamp. You have to be in the system. If you don't pay for the stamp, your mail's not gonna get there. How do we keep everybody enrolled in it? You have healthy risks, you unhealthy risks. Every one of us is gonna need it at some point in our lives. And it cannot be a system where we just need it when we sign up for it. There has to be a way where there's no way of avoiding having insurance. And when I say no way, I don't mean, it's kind of like car insurance now. You have to have it. It's a crime to not have it. No, but most people are covered. Another area where I think there is hope for reform is in the area of prescription drugs. When I started in the health insurance business almost 30 years ago, prescription drugs were less than 5% of our total health spend, the medical spend. We often called them shoebox claims because they were part of remember the old major medical plans? They were kind of an add-on to the old major medical plans, and your prescriptions were fairly cheap. And most of our customers would put them in a shoebox, and at the end of the year, add them up and send them in. We seriously would hire 30, 40 retired employees to come in and sit around tables and sort through these shoeboxes of claims that we would get in. And we'd pay them to do that, and then they'd take the money and head down to Arizona for spring training or something. I don't know what they did with it, but that's how the claims were handled. Now, pharmacy claims are 25% of our total spend. That number is increasing, and that's on a much larger base. A few weeks ago, Spark Therapeutics, you may have read this, said its newly approved gene therapy drug would be priced at $850,000. There's no doubt that this drug and others like it have great potential to transform the lives of patients, of people who have some of these illnesses. But we are at a point where we are being forced to decide which is better. Not having these miracle drugs, or having them but not be able to afford them. And I think we have to ask which is better or which is worse. The result is the same. It is my view, but not necessarily my wish, that we probably need, at least as a place to start, government price controls on drugs. We have to have an immediate impact on these drugs. Now, the big pharma industry is in overdrive on this issue, and to date they've been successful. But we're past the tipping point on the affordability of drugs and the affordability of healthcare costs. We need some immediate solutions that can be effective. Now look at doxycycline, right? When I was growing up, it was what teenagers got for acne. Doxycycline came on the market in 1967, and in 2014, it was 4 cents a pill. Old drug. But as drug companies, lots of things happen. There are kind of markets, and drug companies stop making older drugs that don't have patent protections, and they start making newer drugs that do. The price of doxycycline in the last few years, almost overnight, it went up 8,000%. That's just not rational. That's just not, I mean, you can't have it reminds me a little bit about, when there are hurricanes in South Florida, right? And all of a sudden everybody's rushing to the store, right, to buy milk, and it's just gone. I mean, those things are illegal in most other industries. You can't gouge like that. But we have to do something. And will regulated prices stifle research and development? My view, I don't think so. Because drug prices are not based on the price of research and development. That sounds good. That sounds like a good reason not to do it. But that's not how drug prices are based. Now look, I'm not an expert in this, and I'm sure there are some people in here that know this better than I am, and I could be wrong, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But we have to start doing something. We can't just keep admiring these problems year over year. Now, in order to fix this, I think we need people involved too. It's not just about insurers or providers. You have to be involved. Next time you go see your doctor, ask him how much the office visit costs. Ask him how much the lab test they ordered costs. Ask him how much the prescription costs. They don't have any idea. Most of them. I had a hospital CEO one time, or a health system CEO who was also a physician, tell me, no, and that's exactly how we want it. The cost should have no part in delivering healthcare. I'm sorry, that's just not reality anymore. Because we're leaving people out in the cold by not taking care of that. It may be a great theory, and I don't dispute that. I'm sorry, it's not working anymore. So we also need quality data. We need to understand how to make the old quality equation of value equals cost times quality. But we need to be able to measure quality, and we need to be able to measure variances in quality. So, and I say this with some trepidation to Dr. Flaherty, who's staring at me here. I'm sure I'm not speaking of him, but not all doctors graduated number one in their class. And no health system has the best providers in every specialty and subspecialty. There are variances. I'm not out to disparage anyone, and I'm not trying to make a spectacle out of anyone, but I think there are differences, and with the internet, that's equalizing those. We ought to know those things. Even simple things. There's clear evidence on which doctors are most likely to do surgery and which doctors are not. I mean, all of that information is out there. We need to make it available. And we actually, as consumers, don't use that information. I read an article yesterday where they said about only 5% of the people use that kind of information when it's available. So we're not buying that way. The state of Maryland has an intriguing pricing system for hospitals, sometimes referred to as an all-payer system. And in Maryland, all providers charge everybody the same. It doesn't matter who the payer is, Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance. The amounts can vary, but all are paid the same. And it gives us tremendous transparency into what providers are actually charging for systems. Another idea, we have to abandon the fee-for-service medicine. And insurers, we're classic at it. Medicare, traditional Medicare is classic at that because we're paying for doing more. The rewards go for those who do more, not for those who do best. And we have to figure out better ways of getting there. There are some enlightened providers, including in this area, that are getting better at that. So I have some hope there. Now, the ultimate goal is not financial devastation for providers, right? When I need medical care, I want to have the best doc, and I want it to be good, and I want to be a good facility, and I want to have them have access to the latest technology and all of those things. So it's not that. We know that 20 to 30% of medical care that's delivered is not necessary. How about we just get rid of that? You have better ways to get rid of that. Now, many pundits predict a Democratic sweep in this fall's elections. If that happens, I think the political environment is going to change dramatically. And who knows? They can't get much done, but I think there are things that Congress can do. And if the Democrats are in charge of the White House, there are things that they can do, and they can make life miserable and get some things done. So watch that. I don't know what to predict, but the final area I want to talk about is this whole notion that we have of employer-based care when that's how our system is built. And that's kind of how did we get here does matter. Employer-based care began during World War II when there were price controls in effect, and employers needed to find a way to keep employees and to compensate them more. At the time, health insurance was nascent, and it really wasn't very expensive. I remember the first Blue Cross Blue Shield premium was 25 cents a month for family care. Now, it was very different back then. I'm not trying to make a comparison today, but I mean, that's kind of the relative amount that I'm talking about. And kind of the rest is history, right? But we need to ask ourselves, why do we allow our employer to make a decision on our health care? One of the most important decisions we'd make as a family, and we allow our employer to make that for us? I mean, how many people get locked into a job or a career or a company because of health care? How many people don't have their choice of provider or even the freedom to make rational economic decisions because of the health care plan they're in? So, what do I think? We have to separate this important personal decision from our employers. And you know, as an employer of 3,600 people, and I'm sure you do too, we'd be thrilled. How much of our time do we spend trying to develop a health insurance plan that fits for 3,600 employees or however many you have? It doesn't matter if you have 3 employees, it's hard enough. Everybody has different needs, everybody has different wants. Let everybody go buy their own. That's going to take some time to get there, right? This does not happen overnight. If employers want to provide economic incentives or subsidies, which I think will have to do, then do so. Some will provide more, some will provide less. That market might help. The other thing that insurance coming from an employer does to me is, in my mind, is it confuses whether this is a benefit or whether it's insurance, right? If you get it from your employer, you want to use it. It's compensation. I'm going to use this. Okay, a lot of us also get at least a nominal amount of life insurance from our providers. How many want to use that? Right? No, we don't want to use insurance. So people view their health insurance benefit as a benefit to use that and kind of a feeling. And it's subconscious, but some people may want a zero deductible. No, my parents were that way. They're retired. They wanted a Medicare supplement plan. They want to know, and they pay a huge amount every month. But they're unlimited income. They were a teacher and a professor, so they don't have a lot of money. They just need to know what it's going to be, and they pay it. Not everybody's that way. Some people are going to say, you know what, I can handle a broken leg. I can handle a broken arm. I can handle $10,000. It's not an issue. Let everybody buy what you'd like. So anyway, I'd also like to make sure that we proceed with, and then this is kind of aside from the politics, with the theory that something is better than nothing. And that doesn't seem to be what's happening in Washington now. I'm not a big fan of the Affordable Care Act just because we knew as an insurer from the outset a lot of the things weren't going to work. But I will tell you, something is better than nothing. We have to have some action. Let's build on that. Let's fix the things that are wrong. I don't care if you repeal and replace or whatever language you want to use. Let's just make the next step better. Let's fix it. Something is better than nothing. And kind of get away from, oh no, we have to have a fix. One of the problems, the challenges with the Affordable Care Act is that it was 2,000 pages and it was very confusing. We're not going to get there, right? So when the Republicans said, well, we're going to repeal and replace, oh no. Don't go repeal it with 2,000 pages of other gibberish. That's not going to help. That's not a fix. Let's kind of go from where we are with the reality of where we are and let's find sensible solutions. So change can be incremental. It can be bipartisan or maybe even nonpartisan. Could that work? But we do need to change. So thank you for your time. And now I think I'll be the pin cushion up here if you have questions or comments. We were talking earlier, and I said, I learned in politics the old adage of you stand up to be heard, stand up to be seen, speak up to be heard, and shut up to be enjoyed. So, if you have questions or comments, yeah.
Do you think we will ever get health care out of Washington?
No.
So
No.
that means it'll never be fixed.
I think it could. I think there's going to be a blend. Think of how much of healthcare dollars are spent by government now. Think of Medicare, Medicaid. Think of Medicare delivered in the military. Think of medical care delivered by the Veterans Administration. Think of all of the federal employees that are in the federal health benefits plan. They're just paying for too much of it to abdicate. When I started in this business, there was one thing. There was a mammography benefit that was federally charged in maybe the late 80s or early 90s. That was about all the feds had to play in it. And now it's absolutely overtaken by the federal government. I'm surprised at the lack of synchrony between Medicare and Medicaid, for example. They're in the same building in Baltimore. I'm not making this up. They're in the same building in Baltimore. Why isn't there a little more sense made of that? It just has to come together. Yeah.
I have two questions. You had mentioned the 80% of the expenses in the last year of your life, and you say that needs to be looked into more. Are you one of those guys who believe give them a trip anywhere in the world and they're on hospice, or what do you mean that needs to be looked into more? And then secondly, kind of a side question. Why Hampton, Virginia, did you choose to locate? We've studied them. We've been down there, they've been up here, and we think that's a pretty cool place. And you're one of the first employers I heard mention that, you are making a commitment. So I'm curious into why you chose that.
Thank you. Let me make sure, did everybody hear? The question is, explain a little bit more about the 80% and a little what I think that basically medical tourism is a good idea, and the second was why Hampton, Virginia for our office. Is that fair? 80%. What I was really trying to say is that is viewed as a negative by some people, like we're wasting 80%. I think there's a part of us that totally makes sense, and that if you are efficient in your use of healthcare, you also may spend 80% of it at the end of your life because that's when you're the sickest. I mean, there's an intuitive part about that makes sense, and it's viewed oftentimes as kind of a negative. Well, we're wasting it on all those old people trying to keep them alive. You can turn that camera off, will you? I don't want to be on the news tonight. My dad will be watching TV tonight, and he'll see that on TV, and he'll be calling the lawyer. And what I'm really trying to say is we have to kind of take those statistics, if you want to call them that, and understand why. That may make sense in certain cases and it may not. Okay? I just think we have to be rational about it is the point. That may be rational for some people, irrational for others. Hampton, Virginia. We looked all around the United States. Number one, we're based in Madison. Love to have it in Madison. Love to have it in De Pere. Love to have it in Wausau. Love to have it in Wisconsin. There's no doubt about that. Cannot find people. We needed to hire 900 people overnight. Have them trained, have them skilled, have a facility, have them built up. What we found in Hampton, Virginia is this is a military contract. There's 3 or 4 military bases right around there, a lot of spouses or family members of the military. We were able to hire those people with very competitive, even above market wages and hire them, and they're doing great. Yeah, I mean, it's not it's really just a practical thing. Hampton we found the people they're doing great. They got the energy. And we were talking earlier today. I don't understand. I'd love to do it in Wisconsin. I don't know where Foxconn must be getting information that I don't know about, because I don't know where I can find 13,000 people. I'm not trying to be political about that. I'd do it in a minute if we could have them here. We want to be in Wisconsin. That's much easier to manage, right? It makes a lot more sense for us. There's no desire to go elsewhere, but they did get an inch of snow last week in the office. Just was. and Dr. Flaherty can vouch for that. That's how they got me here from North Dakota. I was the only guy that they could find that moved here for a warmer climate. So.
You said you supported regulation for the healthcare system, and
For drug prices.
But you also said that you thought
Oh, yeah.
How does that improve outcomes?
It doesn't. Nope.
How does cost go down then?
I think costs can go down for some of the other things. First of all, align incentives right? Outcomes. A lot of the unnecessary care that's delivered, I was at a speaker, and I wish I could remember her name, but she was talking about how a lot of the unnecessary care that's delivered is actually harmful, right? So if you remove incentives, you have docs who you have to order this number of tests, you have to see this number of patients. I don't think it really does. I don't think we've even gotten to that outcomes part. That's a great point. I didn't get to that today. Well,
That's the problem with the conversation, is it never starts with the end in mind. And if we improve outcomes, then people won't be in the system as much.
So I was.
We'll be looking at it differently.
And that's a great conversation. I was at an event in California last year. I got invited for the first time. It's called the Health Evolution Summit. And it's a bunch of brainiacs that come. And they talk about health solutions, but it's like all of the limitations are off. And I remember going to one of the panels, and you had two groups. You had the physicians. And they said, look, here's what I want. Here's the ideal system. I need to be able to see my patients. I need to be able to spend time with them. I need to be able to look them in the eye, not look them in a computer screen. I need to be able to understand where they're coming from, where they live, what they're going back to, so that I can understand how I can help them live a better life. See them more often, see them longer, and all those things. Then there was the tech people across. No, you don't understand. We are going to implant 5 devices in your body. And you're going to send those back. I'm dead serious. You're going to send that information back to you, and we will call you if there's something wrong with you. Don't come in and start overburdening the system with a bunch of false alarms. And I'm not trying to take a position on it. I'm just saying that, okay, the answer, like everything else, is kind of in the middle. We have to get docs able to see their patients and practice medicine, and we have to use the technology in an effective way. So, you're watching me on time. So, are we done? One more. Yes.
You had mentioned putting kind of the insurance back in the hands of the employee and kind of having the employer step out. Where do you see the employer's responsibility in kind of the health and wellness of employees? There's definitely a movement for people to be more healthy when they come to work, both psychologically, physically. Where do you see that boundary getting employers?
So the question is basically on moving to an employee-based system, not employer, and how do we have a healthier outcome? You're kind of in the spotlight there with the sun.
Can't see you up there. But.
It's a great question. We've tried at our company wellness plans. I don't think they fundamentally work. So it's like all these gadgets. Give everybody a Fitbit, right? Give everybody a Fitbit, and they'll understand this. I heard somebody say, this is a great example. It's like, okay, who looks at their bank account balance more? Somebody who's rich or somebody who's poor? Right? And that's the problem with a lot of the wellness things. You are encouraging people who are kind of tending to be healthy, and that's good. Somehow we got to figure out, we have a lot of people that have a lot worse medical conditions than that. I got to tell you, I'm not sure. I think just going to that system might help, because those people may pay more. I don't know, and that's not good either. Because what's society, or what's habit, bad habit, and what's just genetics? Thank you very much.
I want to thank Mike for being here and sharing your insights on this mess that we have, and to help us engage it intellectually, and to help actually understand some of the essence of what we might consider going forward. So thank you for being with us. I know you're kind of new to Wisconsin, so I'd like to tell you that, and you told me some things early on in your remarks. I want you to know that Wisconsin's water is pretty clean.
Why is it Green Bay?
Well, but that's a much longer conversation. We do, however, have a river just behind me that flows north. Okay, and I have to look into the Irish and how they're voting. But thank you for being here. Let's give Mike another round of applause. If you'd like a copy of today's presentation, see Amy Sorensen off here to my left. And please join us for the next CEO breakfast on February 28th. Stephen Utek, CEO and founder of Illuminex, principal of Utek Group, will speak on meaning makers, driving retention, growth, and productivity, and that will occur here at St. Norbert College. I'd also like to draw your attention to an upcoming event on campus on Thursday, February 15th. You can write this down or you can look in your folder because we have materials in your folder. On Thursday, February 15th at 8 a.m., the college will host the State of the Economy, a presentation featuring Associate Professor of Economics, Mark Schaefer, and students from the Center of Business and Economics Analysis. The presentation will provide an in-depth look at factors impacting our economy. In addition to this annual event, the CBEA also provides economic impact studies for area nonprofits, providing rich project work for our students and direct beneficial impact to the community. The State of the Economy is a free event, but registration is required. And you can look in your folders for more information. It's great to have you all here. I see the sun is beaming through. It must be a beautiful day outside in that cold weather, so thank you for being here and have a great day.